something I like to address, I have to say this fact at this point, is the fact that my partner really did address all the points of the affirmative, and I'd like to really spend this time to review the entirety of the debate by first addressing the concerns that they have through their questions, and then finally closing out all the contentions that they made and proving that ours are more valid and more logical through our own case. It's protected time. Okay. So, so I'd like first like to say the two main concerns they have is the UN and the problem with the African diamond mines. So first I'll address the UN. They essentially say that the UN was built off of a nationalist idea. So let's take the perspective of the creation of the United Nations, okay? So it was created in World War II, right? And in World War II, nationalism was the source of World War II because Britain wanted to enforce nationalism through the Treaty of Versailles by forcing Germany to give up 2/3 of its economic value. That's what created World War II because then they uprised through Hitler and we know the rest. But the point is simply to show that from the creation of the United Nations, we've had a less amount of deaths, less amount of war because of globalism. People have been taking into account more about humanitarian rights, human rights, morality. They've been taken more into account, and that simply proves our value. So the point isn't to show that the United Nations is this essence of globalism, but it's simply to show how globalism helped decrease war, because it didn't create any more war. That's a World War II. There hasn't been any more. So then we'd also like to point to the African contention that they made when we said diamond. The point of that was simply to show that when Africa suffers in certain trade scenarios, America benefits some more. So the point is simply to show that if you consider things nationally, then you're only caring about your benefits, so other people can suffer, it doesn't matter. So whatever they say in the next contention, address that as a new argument, because again, we're simply trying to prove to you that nationalism doesn't care about the suffering of other people because it's simply your perspective. So then I'd like to go over the entirety of the debate. Now they simply really make three main arguments, which is the following. They make the argument that nationalism has a more focused approach, which is good. They also argue that you can't better yourself with globalism, and they argue that you can't help everybody. So let's address these again, because we've continually addressed these, and the negative is in the right here. So first to say nationalism is a more focused approach. We agree, but that's not the point. They're saying that, for example, when tornadoes attack some small local area, globalism is too big of a perspective. Well, the point of globalism is a perspective, it's not legislation. They define globalism through legislation and policy, but we're telling you that it's a perspective. So you can still solve small problems through globalism. So address that fact, and it's invalid, that their whole entire first contention on that point of focus. Now, they also argue you can't better yourself with globalism. Yes, you can. So we prove that, first of all, through the fourth contention of economics and NAFTA. So let me briefly go over that for you, Judge. So the fact that, first of all, NAFTA was created, which stands for the North American Free Trade Agreement, essentially it says all the countries of the North American continent will not be able to charge each other extra money for the goods that they import. So if Mexico wants to give us apples, they can't tax us anymore. So every country prospers because now we can get apples for a lower cost. So we can buy them at a lower cost, save money, get more goods. So everybody gets more goods, they have more money. So it's proving to you that you can benefit if others help you out. Because nationalism is only thinking about yourself. But if you think about everybody, you can still benefit, as we proved, through economics. And we argued much more, and they never really addressed that. And finally, the really only standing contention they have left is that you can't help everybody, and they use communism and democracy, US versus USSR, as their focus for that. But really, the problem with that is simply that it creates a virtueless democracy, and the fact that, as we stated before, it's a very radical idea. Because what you're saying is, if two people are fighting, you should both go your own ways and not consider everybody else. That's the essence of diplomacy, as we said in our first contention. That's the essence of morality. And again, if you look back, they never offered a value. They simply said later that their value is nationalism. But that's your point. That's not your value. The value is morality. The most important thing is morality. We proved to you, Judge, today in this debate, if you look at all the contentions, all the arguments made, that we proved to you that A, nationalism is less moral, and we used the arguments that they never addressed in the rebuttals. So if they make any new arguments in their final thing that nationalism is moral, then completely address those because that's a new argument. So A, nationalism is less moral. B, globalism is more moral. And C, we proved to you throughout today's debate that globalism is not only more effective, it's been more effective through history, and the fact that globalism is more economically beneficial to everybody, so you can actually benefit. And also, the rebuttals against the affirmative or the negative, essentially, they've been saying that specific examples, mainly the rebuttals have been questions, and we proved to you there are specific examples. The point of globalism, in the essence of everything, if you look at it as the entirety of today's debate, we proved that it's more moral, it's more economically benefit, and for these reasons, it's more important. And also, I like to point that in the rebuttal, they completely ignore our first and second, our third contention and our economics. They that they drop it. That means that they 100% agree with the fact that globalism is more economically advantageous. So for all these reasons and many more, as we proved to you in today's debate, if you look at both worlds that we're offering you, the negative is clearly more important. We won today's debate, and every sub-point we made proved to be more important or better than their sub-points, and thus for these reasons and many more, I negate the resolution. Thank you.